Hey y'all, it's Dia. Welcome back to the channel. So basically, I've essentially turned my living room into a studio space. So I'm starting on this new painting, which is a 36 by 36 inch canvas, and I'll be doing that today. So hopefully, I don't make too much of a mess. Okay, so lately I've been writing the sizes on my canvas because I usually forget them, and this is me just stretching my canvas. Okay, so I've pretty much finished spraying my canvas, and it sounds like a trampoline, which is what I was going for. So now I have to set up my easel because I was not playing when I said that this is essentially my art studio for the summer, at least until I go back to classes. I think this was like one of the best purchases that I've made, buying this, because I used to have like a metal easel, although it's kind of annoying that I have to like set this up every time, and it's also kind of collapsed on me a couple times, a handful of times, but it was definitely my fault and not the easel. Okay, so basically now I'm just prepping my canvas by using gesso. I did end up adding a little bit of black to the mixture just so I can tell the difference between of places that I've covered and places that I didn't cover. I saw this from another YouTuber. I can't remember his name, but if any of you guys know him, please like put him in the comments down below. Also, not to mention, the gesso that I have, it was a nightmare to make the mixture because, okay, so the mixture has to be kind of like a glue-like consistency, but the gesso that I have, it's like extremely thick. And I remember my professor was roasting me on how thick my gesso was, but it ended up working out. And this is when like I added in the color so I can see which parts need to be covered in gesso and which parts don't. Also, after I did like the whole gessoing of the board, okay, so for my sketch, I used charcoal because I knew if I used graphite, I was going to be unwilling to change my composition. The amount of times I had to erase the figure because it wasn't looking the way that I wanted it to look, either it was the composition or it wasn't centered, and so I had to move it like a bunch of times to like center it because I don't know what I was doing, but yeah, eventually I did end up getting the figure to the way that I wanted it to look before I started doing my underpainting. Also, not to mention, like while I was doing my underpainting, the charcoal was like mixing into the paint, which that's what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting it to be like such a pain to have it like mixing into the paint. Luckily, I'm doing like an underpainting, so it didn't really matter that much. But I also didn't want to use fixative on the canvas before I put paint. I don't know if that would like affect the way the paint like sits on the canvas or if it would cause cracking or whatever because I'm using oil and oil is difficult and they like to have a mind of their own and they have rules or whatever. And then for like this part, I got like sick and tired of drawing the figure, so I quite literally put lines where the head needed to be in order for it to be centered. And then like on my phone, so I made like a Procreate design of how I wanted my well, kind of like the gist of the idea of how I wanted my painting to look like. Also, if you guys have any shows like suggestions, please comment them down below. So for like this whole painting session, a few days I've been watching Survivor and I'm like rewatching seasons and some of the seasons I don't even remember what happened, which is like kind of crazy, but yeah, I've been watching Survivor while I've been like drawing and painting and doing all this other stuff. As far as like the background, I like to keep my shapes pretty general and fluid just because I don't really need a lot of detail when it comes to any sort of landscape. But as far as like the actual figure and the wings on it and how the clothes are gonna flow, I will be doing a pretty detailed like underpainting of all that stuff. And as you can see, I'm like not tracing, but drawing in the wings like in my Procreate version, I had drew on several different wings and some of them just it didn't look as good as like the others, so I'm going to do like kind of what I'm doing in this sketch right now. Although in the underpainting I do make the wings more dramatic just because I know it'll look better. As far as the pose, I chose this pose because I knew if I did like just a standing pose, it would have been extremely stiff. I have this problem with every time I try to draw a person or a figure, they're extremely stiff. So I decided to use like a dancer as my reference so I can make it as fluid as possible and have like movement. But I think because of the pose that I chose, it's that's like the main reason why I was struggling with centering it when I should have just started from the head. That's how I usually center any pose when I'm doing it, especially when I'm in my figure drawing class. I literally just put the head in the middle of the page and it's centered. So I think I was trying to like take it from the torso part and center it, and it wasn't working that way. So I just picked the head and it worked out. So right now I'm starting on the underpainting, and usually when I underpaint I use yellow and red, and sometimes I use burnt umber, but right now I'm just using yellow and red to like make an orange underpainting. And like I said earlier, so the charcoal was mixing into the paint, so I had to be careful when I was filling in all of my sketch to make sure that I didn't lose the sketch by like wiping off the charcoal or the paint wiping off the charcoal. By the way, if you guys have any suggestions on how I can like do an underpainting with charcoal but without using fixative, please let me know. I don't know, I don't really want to use fixative in my house. Maybe if I was at the studio, I'd be like, okay, fine. Like the toxic fumes, like we can do this. But since I'm in my house, I kind of don't want to use it, especially since like we have pets and stuff. So yeah, that's also why I really didn't want to use the fixative. I think also, so some of my professors, they like hyper fixate on things being like symmetrical or centered and stuff like that. So now that it's rubbed off on me, I'm like a snob about it. It's really bad. I don't know how this happened, but it did. And then, like, as far as this underpainting, so right now I'm really just trying to block in things and kind of cover up the charcoal, at least with one layer of paint, so then it stops getting all over the place. And after I like cover up the whole canvas and stuff with at least one thing of acrylic paint, I end up going back in and like putting in a lot more detail, especially to the figure and the wings. By the way, for those who have never oil painted, you don't have to do all this extra work that I'm doing. I just personally do it because I think it's a little bit easier to fix mistakes with acrylic paint over like oil. But of course, the people who like oil paint would say, no, like it's easier to fix with oil. Okay, I don't use oil that often, so that's what I'm doing with my extensive underpainting of acrylic paint. Another reason why I'm going so detailed with this underpainting, I just want to minimize the mistakes that I make with, well, quote unquote mistakes that I make with oil paint. Like some things are good mistakes and some things are bad mistakes. Okay, guys, so it's like day 3 or 4. It's been a couple days since I've last touched it. So today I'm gonna work on it and I'm trying to have the motivation. Well, I'm down here now, so I better get to it. But literally, I've been procrastinating, so let me put this painting up here. Okay, so this is essentially how much I got done of the underpainting. I still need to do more of the underpainting, but hopefully today we can finish the underpainting and then start with oil. Probably tomorrow, hopefully, but before I start, even though I just took a nap, I think I need to eat something. I'm starving, so I'm gonna make a sandwich and then we're gonna start. Okay. I'm basically on lunch break before I've even started, so okay, I have this amazing uh, turkey and salami sandwich with aioli, garlic aioli sauce. So, and then I'll actually start. Like, pinky promise. Okay, as you can see, I did most of the blocking out already, and right now I'm trying to correct the arms because my angel is getting a little swole, a little strong. So that's what I'm doing now. See, this is why I'm using acrylic and not oil. I feel like if I did this with oil, I would probably be crashing out right now because it's still wet. But yeah, so I'm just like finishing out blocking out everything, and like I said earlier in my video, for my background, I usually keep things pretty general and fluid just because I don't need a lot of detail. I'm pretty confident in my ability to do like landscape, so that's why I don't put like a lot of detail in it versus like the figure. Because in reality, my background, there's so much that's going to be going on in the background that you can't even tell in the underpainting because everything is so like general. And now looking at this footage, I really hope I fixed that. I think I did, but the way that the shoulders and like the neck area, it looks like one of my shoulders is like dislocated. I don't know what's going on with that shoulder, but I'm pretty sure I do end up fixing it. I'm looking at it now and it looks kind of crazy. You guys don't have to pay attention, but I'm paying attention for y'all. And for like the actual composition of my angel, I actually called my friend twice because she draws people very often and paints them too. So I'm just like, okay, like please tell me what needs to be fixed. But I see it now. Like I learned in my figure drawing class. So basically I'm just like blocking in the lights and the darks and like the basically the shadow form of the face and carving out the face as what my professor would say. And one thing about this, I've been really enjoying the process. Something about the face, like when I carved it out with red and orange paint, it just looked so cool. And it kind of made me want to start a series of just like faces with different colors and basically like carving out the face in like extreme shadows and lights and darks and stuff like that. I do know I did redo the face like twice. The first face was fine, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, so I definitely redid the face, which ended up looking really, really, really good. So if anybody here is watching and they struggle with like making faces, I would suggest, I mean, like my professor said, just to like carve out the face where the lights and the shadows are hitting instead of starting off with the eyes. My professor says when you start off with things like the eyes or the nose before you carve out the face, it makes it, you basically like go into this rabbit hole of like trying to capture how the person actually looks, but it's very hard to do that if you don't actually carve out how their facial structure is. But yeah, that's just like a little tip of what I do, or I guess what I'm doing now. That's also kind of how I'm like carving out how the neck muscles look. I think it was very informational to look at how muscles work and how like a muscular system works to see how the figure should look. Like for the arm, I know I'm gonna have to fix the arm, and I know I'm gonna have to fix where like the shoulder and neck connect right there because there's something off about it, and I'm not sure what it is yet. I've also decided to detail like some of the body, even though that it's gonna be covered with clothes. I just need to make sure that the proportions are correct or as accurate as I can get them. Just because I'm one of those people that start making up stuff that definitely isn't there, but it's there now. Like for example, for the dress that I'll be making on the angel, I have no idea what it's gonna look like. I just kind of just started putting putting some sort of dress on her. Like I don't have like a reference of how exactly I want it to look, but I also kind of wanted to give like avant-garde, so like it's realistic but also kind of not realistic because it's a painting and I want it to be dramatic. But even though I want it to be dramatic, I want to make sure that how the clothing is sitting on the figure, how they're wearing it, I want it to be believable. I think that's something that's super important to make sure that whatever movement, whatever clothing, whatever wings I put on the figure, that it's believable. Like even the wings now, I ended up making it a little bit bigger just because I like for a person of that size, like I figured that you would need bigger wings to actually hold up your body weight, even though they're not as big as like what's in my mind. Like you guys are just gonna have to trust the process for this one. And then right now, that's like I'm kind of just basically drawing in the clothes of like my idea of how I want it to look. So hopefully it ends up looking right. And then this is what I was talking about, the face. I love how I carved out the face. It just looks so good to me. And then as you can see like the ear and how like the face is like looking down. I think that's something that's like, wow. Like how did I do that? And for my angel, I decided that I want to make her hair short and curly, but I don't want to give too much away of how the angel is gonna look. You guys are just gonna have to come like watch another video of when I'm actually oil painting on my underpainting. But yeah. This is also one of the parts where I literally called my friend to check my composition. Like I think at this point I was just looking at my painting too much. Like I am in like awe with the face, but there was something about like the composition that was throwing me off, but I don't know if I might have just been overthinking the entire thing, which is why I was like, "Hey girl, like does it look fine?" And everyone said it did. So maybe that's just me and I've been looking at it for too long, but yeah. So even when I'm telling y'all to trust the process, I gotta tell myself to trust the process because the way I'm nitpicking is actually ridiculous because it looks fine now. Now that I'm looking at it and I haven't looked at it in 12 hours, I feel better about it. Maybe and like subconsciously I'm just procrastinating about using oil, so I'm trying to find anything wrong. But if you guys have made it this far into the video, thank you guys for watching and see y'all next time.